Ready? Everybody's mic is on? Make our presence felt here. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Hialeah Planning and Zoning Board meeting for August 24th, 2022. Do we have anybody on Zoom? One? All right, everyone, please stand for the invocation. Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we ask that you watch over us tonight as we go through these proceedings. We also ask that you give us the wisdom to make the right decision for all those involved here tonight. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Meeting guidelines. The following guidelines apply to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Any person, whether participating via the web platform, telephonic conferencing, or physical presence at City Hall, interested in making comments or posing questions on any item on the agenda may do so during the meeting. Members of the public may hear the meeting live through telephonic conferencing using any telephone or cellular phone service. A smart device or computer are not necessary to participate in the meeting if you join by phone. All persons participating via the web platform will be muted during the meeting until called upon to be heard. Participation through Zoom requires a computer or smart mobile device with a microphone and a web camera. The participant may elect to participate in the meeting using audio only or appear through both audio and video. The video function of all participants appearing through video will be turned off until called upon to be heard. All lobbyists must register with the Planning and Zoning Board prior to item being heard. A maximum 4 speakers in favor and 4 speakers in opposition will be allowed to address the Planning and Zoning Board on any item. Each speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Roll call. Mr. D. Perez?
Here.
Mr. Gamon?
Here.
Mr. Iglesias?
Here.
Mr. Jimenez?
Here.
Mr. Ulloa is absent. Mr. Casanova is absent. Mrs. Enriquez? Here. We have a quorum. Administration of oath to all applicants and anyone who will be speaking before the board on any item.
Anyone that will be speaking in front of the board, please stand, raise your right hand. That also includes any of those on the electronic audience. Law Department will swear you in.
Firm to tell the truth before this board.
Okay. Do we need a translator for the swearing in or? No? Good deal. Thank you.
Summary minutes or a copy of the audio file of the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to the City Council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at its scheduled meeting of Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Okay, so LU1 has been withdrawn because we're going to need to re-advertise.
We don't have it here, right?
No, you don't have it here, so I'll just read the address. 3375 West 4th Avenue, applicant Cesar Mestre Esquire. So no action, because it's been withdrawn.
It's been withdrawn here.
Yes. LU2, small scale map amendment from residential office to commercial. Property located at 355 West 49th Street, Hialeah Zone R2, residential office. Applicant Felix M. Lasarte Esquire.
Felix, how you doing?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, board members, Felix Lasarte with offices at 3250 Northeast First Avenue.
Thank you, sir.
The property in this application is located at West 49th Street in the middle of the block between West 4th Avenue and West 3rd Avenue, and is developed with a building originally built as a home in 1952 and converted into an office in 1983. The 49th Street corridor stretch that runs from Palm Avenue to West 4th Avenue is consistently designated with residential office land use, except for the block where Mailander Park and the JFK Library are located, and the northeast intersection of West 49th Street and West 4th Avenue. The Mylander Park block has recreation and open space land use designation and a commercial strip towards the intersection with Palm Avenue. The northeast intersection of West 49th Street has commercial land use designation and construction of a new commercial development has been completed. Only 2 properties in the subject corridor stretch remain with the original R1 zoning and remain developed as single-family home. Most of the rest are developed as residential office on large lots where some had its land use and zoning recently changed for redevelopment purpose. At this time, the applicant for this 0.43-acre site is before the city requesting a land use change from residential office to commercial with the intention of establishing a medical research business. The reason for the land use change is to increase the number of occupational licenses. The submitted plans show a proposed update to the building, eliminating the last vestiges of the residential character and providing a contemporary look. The site layout will mostly remain as is, consistent with the intent of the residential office designation, and therefore compatible, and will continue effectively buffering the low-density residential properties north of West 49th Street. The property is served by pump station 061 that is currently in okay status. An increase in flow may require a hydraulic analysis and water and sewer extensions for which the property owner will be responsible. For the characteristics of the use, there will be no impact on public schools. Since the proposed use will generate less than 3,000 trips, no traffic impact analysis is required. The requested land use change is consistent with the City of Hialeah Comprehensive Plan, policies 1.1.1, 1.1.8, and 1.4.3 of the future land use element. The recommendation is approval.
Thank you. Felix?
Mr. Chairman, board members, once again, Felix Lasarte with offices at 3250 Northeast First Avenue. Does that microphone work? The microphone that's there?
Should, yeah.
Kind of just point out some things for you, if that's possible. I think it's just going to make the presentation a little bit easier.
There you go.
So this is West 4th Avenue, and this is West 49th Street, right? This is the east side. It's really the northeast side of West 49th Street and 4th Avenue. A few years ago, the property next door, and actually represented that applicant, came in and asked for a commercial designation. And that's where you have an MD now and an Aspen Dental. So the property almost immediately next door wants to convert the property to a commercial use. And the reason that we're asking for this change is because your code.
Felix, just want to recognize Mr. Uola is here. Okay,
No, I just wanted to
Well,
recognize that.
we have a member that just arrived. Mr. Ulloa is now present.
Okay. I was going to do it, but you do it.
Okay.
You do it better than I do.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Felix.
No, please. So welcome, Mr. Rio. So the property is, because there's a land use here for this residential office. It's really an old land use that the city's had for many years. And I believe even over the course of the last few years, your planner has even been talking about the fact that a lot of these properties should go commercial because it's an antiquated type zoning. It was really a type of zoning and land use that was really better for doctors and dentists when they had their own practices and they could come in and have these little offices, along major corridors. Most medical practices today are owned by hospitals, as you can see them. And a lot of these practices have 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10 doctors, and you can't have, under the RO, that many licenses. So what we have here is a proposed medical use. They do medical testing in the facility. You need various licenses to do that. It's all complies with state licensing. And that is the use that is proposed in this little green box. Let me tell you what we've done. I have 14 signatures of the property owners which abut this proposed use in the rear, which is the residential area, which are supportive of the application, including the neighbor that's directly to the rear of the property. We have their signatures, which I think is very important. The property that's there now You can see it's an old house. It's not ugly, but it's an older house, and it's used by a law firm. What we're proposing to do is this type of building, and this is what we're going to be submitting plans for when we come in to permit it. So it's going to be a very nice improvement. It's a contemporary design. It has a little bit of a modern feel, but it's more of a contemporary design. It's got wood treatments, and we think it's going to be a nice addition to the neighbors. We're not putting a second story, so you're not going to have issues of the commercials looking into the residential in the rear. We're going to have the required fencing between the dissimilar land uses, right, between the residential in the rear and then the commercial to the front to give people privacy. The parking's going to be in the back. The building's going to be pushed towards 49th Street. And it's really a use which is a quiet use. It's not an intense use. It's not really a traditional retail use. It's really more like an office use. But in order to comply with what their needs are and what your code requires, we need to come in and ask for this business designation. And eventually we'll come back and rezone it soon to C1 at the city. And that pretty much concludes my presentation. The traffic engineer, Joaquin Vargas, is here. You know, Joaquin basically said, listen, from a traffic perspective, and I never heard him say this, he says to me, this is like throwing a pebble into the Atlantic Ocean in terms of creating more traffic. I mean, this is really, it doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of a traffic with the existing use for lawyers and the use that we're proposing. I think it maybe adds like 4 or 5 trips on West 49th Street, which is really not a whole lot of trips on that street. So, you know, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Our owner, Eileen Tablado, is in the back. She raised her hand. She, not for sympathy, but she just had a baby, and she came here after 2 weeks. So that counts for anything.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But if we really don't have anything much else to present, but if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer them.
That property sits right next to the infamous corner there, the corner lot that corner lot came before us so many times.
But it's redeveloped.
It is a very nice project that,
Yeah,
yeah.
we worked that very hard.
Oh, I know.
We worked that very hard.
For many years.
Many years.
Yes, sir.
You deferred that application. I was going to do a Taco Bell there. at one
Taco
point.
Bell, yeah, that was one of them.
And you guys deferred that application at least 100 times. It was tough.
No, that's a good use of the property now. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? Anyone in the electronic audience? Closes the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second that motion.
Motion, Mr. Jimenez, second, Mr. Iglesias. Mr. Ulloa?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. G. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
OU3, small-scale map amendment from industrial to transit-oriented development district. Property located at 1140 East 25th Street, Hialeah zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant, 1140 East owner, LLC.
Okay, let's get 1146 owner.
Mr. Chairman, good evening, members of the board, members of the administration. My name is Javier Zayas Bazan. I'm one of the owners. I'm attended with my partner, another owner, Mr. Christian De Gale, and our architect. Our application this evening is to change, I'm sorry.
Just your name and address for now, and
Yes.
then I'll open the floor for you once she reads it into the record.
Of course, Mr. Chairman.
Your address?
1110 Brickell Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33131. That's my address, and the property address is 1140 East 25th Street.
Beautiful. Give us a minute, and then you have the floor.
Yes.
Thank you.
The property in this application is located at the southeast intersection of East 25th Street and the railroad tracks, almost adjacent to Hialeah Transfer Tri-Rail Metro Rail Station's access on the south side of East 25th Street and within the Hialeah Transfer Transit-Oriented District. The application is before the city requesting a land use amendment from commercial to transit-oriented district in order to redevelop the site with a new mixed-use high-rise building in accordance with TOD regulation. The requested land use is consistent with Goal 4 and all related policies of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. compatible with surrounding uses and in line with the city's vision for the TOD district. The location of the site, almost adjacent to regional and local mass transit, will encourage transit use and reduce the number of trips that a regular multifamily development would typically generate. It will also further Objective 1.5 and 1.7 of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. The site is served by pump station 04011 that is in OK status. Prior to development, the applicant will need to submit plans to the Public Works Department in order to determine the required infrastructure improvements, as for example, water and sewer main extensions. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools preliminary concurrency review is in process. The recommendation is approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Storch. This is where the old fence business was, wasn't it?
It was actually an agricultural feed, and then it was, the property is located on the south side of 25th Street, abutting the Tri-Rail corridor
Southeast.
on the southeast corner, correct?
Right, that's where there was fencing posts and that kind of business.
Interesting.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't even know that part.
Yeah.
The property itself is, and pardon my voice, it's a bit raspy, but the property itself is being located next to Tri-Rail and Metro Rail. It presents a very unique location in the entire county. And we believe actually it's perfect for growth.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of activity on that corridor. And we believe that this corridor is going to represent one of the more strategic corridors moving forward in the entire county. Certainly Miami-Dade County and even the Tri-County area, because of the Tri-County reach of the particular property. We believe that the occupants of this property could work in Palm Beach County. They could work in Broward. They don't necessarily need vehicles. They can take the Metro Rail to downtown. We believe it represents a future of more urbanism in Miami-Dade County, and Hialeah would be at the forefront of that. We would be playing a relatively small part. We're not a massive project. Certainly there's plenty of activity in the corridor that I think is going to shift the trajectory of Hialeah to more urban in that particular segment, which is the transfer district segment. And we're excited about the development. I have Mr. Spokojny, our architect here, and of course he can comment more about the architectural details. The basics are primarily residential apartments with an active use at street front facing 25th Street. So for example, retail, we look maybe to Planet Fitness or some restaurant use that might serve the folks, the employees at Hialeah Hospital and the surrounding areas. That being said, we look to build high quality, a very nice design, modern, sleek. We brought some images in case you wanted to see the renderings. We believe the design will represent the future of Hialeah very well in that segment. I don't think it envies anything from any other burgeoning urban neighborhood such as Wynwood or Midtown or whatnot, Brickell even. We believe that this is a very high quality design, and that's what we want to deliver to Hialeah. And I will add that I graduated high school in Hialeah. My wife is from Hialeah, and I want to do right by the city. So that is all I have for you.
We will show the rendering, but we prefer that you reserve all the details of the project for the rezoning. When you come for the rezoning, at that point, we would like to hear from the architect and look at the details. But now we are considering just the land use, and the land use is compatible because it is in the district that was designated for that purpose. So for you, we will show there, we are showing the rendering of what it will look, but we will get into the details when you come back for the rezoning.
Of course, Ms. Storch.
Sounds good to you?
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions?
Further comments?
Any comments or questions from the board? It'll be a prime location, I'm telling you. Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? So the part of the public hearing was a pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second, Mr. Ramon. Mr. Ulloa?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item LU4 has been withdrawn by the applicant's request. That one doesn't have a physical address, but I'll just read the folio number. Folio number 04-2021-001-0480. Applicant Hugo P. Arza, Esquire, on behalf of Security Estates.
Okay, so Hugo Arza
This is the.
withdrew it.
Yeah, that is withdrawn.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
All
no
right.
action,
Next
it's
one.
been withdrawn.
Yeah.
okay, good deal.
LU5, small-scale map amendment from major institutions to commercial. Property located at 8155 West 12th Avenue, Hialeah Zone C1, Restricted Retail Commercial District. Applicant Alejandro J. Arias, Esquire, on behalf of Daniel Camano.
Mr. Arias, welcome back. Long time no see.
701 Brickell Avenue.
Thank you.
See you all.
The property in this application is located on the east side of West 12th Avenue, south of the Gratini Expressway, and adjacent on its south side to the Hialeah Miami Lakes High School. The property includes 2.61 acres, has major institutions land use, and is developed with a 4,051 square building used as a daycare as approved by a special use permit in 1961. The property is zone C1. The adjacent land uses are major institutions and commercial to the north, major institutions to the east, and low-density residential to the west across West 12th Avenue. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use change to commercial in order to make the land use consistent with existing zoning and with the intention of redeveloping the site with a new mixed-use building under the Neighborhood Business District regulation. The site is served by Pump Station 04064, which is in temporary moratorium status, where a location is not allowed. The applicant will need to reach an agreement with the Public Works Department prior to development. Replatting of the property that currently includes part of the right-of-way will be required. Since West 12th Avenue is a Miami-Dade County right-of-way, the plat will be reviewed by the county and by the City Streets Department, who will address traffic flow on West 12th Avenue and recommend improvements if required. Any required right-of-way improvement that results from the subject project will need to be funded by the developer. As per the traffic level of service, the city's concurrency system indicates that the level of service is concurrent. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools preliminary concurrency review is in process. The proposed land use is consistent with objectives 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6 of the comprehensive plan land use element and 1.1 and 2.2 of the housing element. The recommendation is approval.
Thank you. The pump station is in a temporary moratorium.
That pump station belongs to Miami-Dade County. So when the applicant goes and talks with the public works departments, they will reach out to Miami-Dade County, see what is the problem, which are the fixes that are necessary, and then they will enter into some kind of agreement to have that fixed, or maybe since it is temporary, by the time they are ready to develop and they find out, maybe they get the allocation.
Sounds to me like you need an awful lot of porta potties.
Hopefully not. It's only temporary.
No one will, they cannot develop if they don't
Right,
have
right, yeah.
if they don't have DERM approval. DERM will never
right.
approve without the pump station functioning. So that's why we have the concurrency process. I just wanted to make them aware of the situation.
You have the floor.
Giselle, I think I have a present.
Also, remember, this is land use. All the details, wait for the reason.
A very brief.
Okay, one second.
Good evening once again, council members. Alejandro Arias, joined by my colleagues, Alexandria San Roman, Hugo Arza. This approximately 2.61 acre property is situated south of the Gratini Parkway, north of West 79th Street, and fronts on West 12th Avenue, with Hialeah Miami Lakes Senior High abutting the property to the south. Next slide, please. The site is currently approved with a 4,000 square foot daycare elementary school. Next slide.
Well, it's approved with the daycare. The elementary school is another issue.
There's elementary school on the sign. The subject property has a land use designation of major institutions, and as such, next slide. Tonight, we're seeking, our request is to redesignate the property to the commercial land use, which is in line with the underlying zoning that it currently has, C1. Next slide. Ultimately, the applicant's vision is to redevelop this property as a mixed-use development that will continue the transformation of this streetscape and corridor. Currently, the property is truly underutilized. There's about 114,000 square feet of land on the property, and the only thing developed on it is 4,000 square feet of the daycare element. This vision will serve to enhance the character of the neighborhood while also meeting a number of the goals in the future land use and quality of life goals set forth in the city's comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. The applicant has also filed a special use permit application to extend the neighborhood business district, the MBD, onto the property in order to achieve this development program, and a more detailed set of plans and elevations will be provided at that time. We hope that that will be on the heels of this approval and will be before you in the next couple of weeks. It should be noted, however, that the applicant has undertaken great care to incorporate appealing architecture and design elements and made great efforts to curtail any negative impacts to the community. The West 12th corridor encompasses a myriad of uses, from school uses to commercial uses, multifamily apartments, to the McDonald Aquatic Center and Park just down the street. This particular property serves as a northern gateway into the city, and as such, this mixed-use project will truly serve to enhance the attractiveness and visual appeal of this important gateway into the city. It will also serve the highest and best use that this site merits based on the current acreage. Next slide. Additionally, the proposal will serve to create much-needed jobs, provide quality mixed-use opportunities, and increase the city's ad valorem tax base. And as such, we respectfully request your recommendation of approval, and we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. You are aware, even though it was supposed to be a little off-color joke, but you are obviously aware of the situation with the pump station, which is going to require a little bit more effort on your part.
Absolutely, and we're already actively working to.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? Anyone in the electronic audience? Closes the part of the public hearing. Was a pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second, Mr. Ramon. Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa? Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, now it's only land use.
LU 6, small scale map amendment from industrial to commercial. Property located at 7445 West 4th Avenue, Hialeah Zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant Alejandro J. Arias, Esquire, on behalf of Fewer Family 2 LLC.
Good evening. Well, I'm clearly not Alejandro Arias.
I was just going to say, you've
Nope, I am not, but hopefully I'm a close second. Good evening. My name is Alessandria San Roman with law offices located at 701 Burkle Avenue.
Alejandro, Alexandria. Hey,
Close.
thank you. You'll read it into the record here for you.
The property in this application is located at the northeastern intersection of Red Road and West 74th Place. The general location of the property is at the south end of an industrial pocket located between the Gratini Expressway and West 74th Place, west of Red Road, that is gradually transitioning to a mixed-use area, informally referenced as Amelia District. The immediate area to the west is also under redevelopment, where the former dog track and Salvation Army are in the process of being redeveloped as multifamily and mixed use. The properties south of the subject property are mostly commercial along the Red Road corridor and high-density residential along West 74th Place. West 74th Place ends at the Amelia Earhart Park, where a pedestrian entrance has been recently added. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use change from industrial to commercial in order to retrofit the existing warehouse as a retail entertainment venue to serve the existing and new residential areas. The site is served by Pump Station 30307, that is in OH status and allows unconditional allocation, but will require a sewer hydraulic analysis. Traffic-wise, the proposed development will not generate more than 3,000 trips, so a traffic impact analysis is not required. Existing signals, turning lanes on Red Road, and the adjacent street network have the conditions to absorb the traffic flow that the redevelopment of the site would generate. A safe pedestrian crossing on 174th Place is recommended to facilitate the use of the existing sidewalks on the south side of West 74th Place that serve to connect the site with the Amelia Earhart Park. As the district evolves, backout parking on city's right-of-way shall be eliminated and safer pedestrian connections shall be built. The subject property will provide such first improvements on the north side of West 74th Place. The proposed land use change is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, particularly with policies 1.4.3, 1.4.9, and 1.6.8 of the future land use element. The requested land use change is compatible with the area and more harmonious with existing residential uses than the existing one. As a result, the requested land use change is recommended for approval.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, planning board members, chairman, staff, assistant city attorney. Again, my name is Alessandria San German with law offices located at 701 Brickell Avenue. I'm joined here by my colleague, Alejandro Arias and Hugo Arza. Perfect. We have our slides. So the applicant is requesting a small scale map amendment from industrial to commercial for the property located at 7445 West 4th Avenue. Next slide, please. As you can see, the property is a 0.771 acre parcel of land, again, located at 7445 West 4th Avenue and situated within the city's growing Amelia district. The site is currently improved with a one-story building previously used for industrial purposes, and as you can see today, it is currently unoccupied. Next slide, please. The property is designated industrial on the city's comprehensive plan future land use map, as shown in the top image. And as such, we're here tonight in order to redesignate the property from industrial to the commercial land use category. You can see in the below image, the current zoning is M1, and we are requesting, which you will see at a later time, a redesignation to C3. Next slide, please. This is just a recap, again, from industrial to commercial. Next slide. So the West 4th Avenue corridor has gone through extensive redevelopment over the years, as you all know, really in order to meet the goal of the city, and that's to create a live, work, and play environment. Today, the Amelia District is home to numerous new residential projects, sprouting retail options, and a preschool academy. Its convenient location next to the 515-acre Amelia Earhart Park and just south of the Gratney and the Opa-locka Airport has created numerous residential options for the district. As shown in the current slide, this is the view of approved or already built projects on the east side of West 4th Avenue. This includes Park Villas, Enclave, Pose Lofts, Las Vistas, etc. Next slide, please. On the west side, you're looking at the recently approved Manor Hialeah, as well as Vistas de Amelia. Next slide. And just so you can get an idea, this is a breakdown of each project and their unit counts in the area that are coming. So you're looking at approximately 1,464 units in this area. So with these approved units in the district, there is a need to have more retail and commercial options. Next slide. The applicant envisions creating a project that encompasses a holistic commercial development of both retail space and environmental space, with retail space on the ground floor and an entertainment space on the second floor, which will feature a rooftop landscape area. Next slide. Again, these are just the project highlights, but the project is going to positively contribute to the area's infrastructure and revitalization. It's going to help encourage pedestrianism, transit ridership, and bicycling. It's also going to be constructed utilizing the best quality materials and design elements. And it's also going to create much needed jobs for the city, create commercial opportunities, preserve property values, and increase the city's ad valorem tax base. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the proposed redesignation is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and specifically meets the criteria on the slide in front of you. I do, most importantly, want to point out that it does meet the quality of life goal, and that's to encourage a land use pattern that will enhance the quality of life for citizens, promote economic vitality, and accommodate population and development growth in an environmentally acceptable manner. So that's the general gist of our application. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
So that will be an entertainment space. We're looking at a rooftop area. Again, that will come before you, hopefully next month. We're working with staff on the site plan, and we'll be able to give you more details with that. No, there will not be. No, this is meant to complement the existing and proposed residential development in the area.
He seems to be aiming a lot towards the little airplanes flying around the building. I see a bunch of. Thank you, John. Any more comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Closes the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion
you.
to approve.
Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second, Mr. Yuva. Mr. Amon?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you.
LU 7, small scale map amendment from low density residential and major institutions to medium density residential. Properties located at 585 East 25th Street, 591 East 26th Street, 595 East 26th Street, folio number 04-3108-001-2570 and 04-3108-001-2580. Hialeah Zones R1, one family district. Applicant Manny Rose.
Manny?
Good evening, Manny Rose, architect with offices at 18501 Pines Boulevard, Suite 342, Pembroke Pines, Florida.
Thank you, sir.
The properties in this application include 5 parcels, from which the one with address 585 East 26th Street is developed with a single-family home built in 1955, and the remaining 4 are vacant. The consolidated properties are located at the east end of the block, located within East 26th Street, East 27th Street, East 6th Avenue, and East 5th Avenue, fronting Hialeah Hospital. The vacant properties have major institution land use as amended from low-density residential in 1988 in relation to a daycare center associated with the Hialeah Hospital. The property that is improved with a single-family home has low-density residential land use. The properties west of the site have low-density residential land use, and the properties to the east have major institutions land use and low-density residential land use. However, the one with the low-density residential land use is a vacant parcel that has C2 zoning and is also owned by Hialeah Hospital. The site is within walking distance of the medical corridor on East 25th Street, major employment hubs such as Hialeah Hospital, Leon Medical Center, and Hialeah Park. It is also close to the Hialeah Transfer, TOD, and mass transit. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from low-density residential and major institutions to medium-density residential in relation to a proposal to develop the site with a 2-story multifamily development under the Neighborhood Business District regulations. The proposed change would make the land use less intense than the existing one that could now allow intensive uses such as educational or medical, making it more consistent with the area than the existing land use. In addition, the proposed residential development will contribute to fulfilling the city's housing demand, and the proposed scale makes it compatible with the rest of the block, which is entirely residential. The site is served by Pump Station 3048, which is in okay status. The Public Works Department indicated that the sewer analysis will be required. The scale of the development does not require traffic analysis, and the city's concurrency system indicates that the level of service for traffic is met. The Miami-Dade County Public School preliminary concurrency review is in process. The proposed land use is consistent with objectives 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6 of the comprehensive plan land use element and 1.1 and 2.2 of the housing element. In light of the above considerations, the requested land use should be approved.
Thank you, Mrs. Storch.
Good evening, Manny Rose Architect. We're again proposing to do another beautiful project in the city of Hialeah. 2 stories, been in discussions heavily with Deborah and Ms. Storch. And we feel very confident that this will be a huge enhancement for the area. Proposing 3 buildings, 2 stories, composed of a total of 28 units. It will be 24 2-bedrooms and 4 3-bedroom units. And we feel comfortable also with the parking ratio. We're providing 2 parking spaces per unit. And also we have like 8 to 10 street parkings that can be used for guests or whatever, in addition to what we're proposing. So we're here before you to get your blessing and proceed with the land use amendment and then eventually the rezoning. If anybody has any questions, please, I'll be more than glad to answer them.
Thank you. I was wondering when this lot was going to come around, because this lot's been sitting empty there for the longest time, and it's a prime real estate.
Yeah. But it's nice that it's coming for
Yeah,
residential
it's nice.
and not another parking.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Manny. Any comments or questions from the board?
Are these rental properties?
I'm sorry, rental, yes.
Any more comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? What's the public hearing? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion, Mr. Iglesias. Second, Mr. Ramon. Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa? Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you.
Manny, is
Yes, sir.
this Hialeah Hospital type of property, or is it a Leon, or is
Leon
it
Medical
independent?
Center. It's Mr. Benjamin Leon owns the property.
Okay,
Actually, the estate owns the property.
okay. All right,
All right?
just curiosity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good man.
LU8, small-scale map amendment from low-density residential to high-density residential. Property located at 350 East 40th Street, Hialeah zoned R1, one family district. Applicant, Sunny Comfort Home LLC.
Okay, do we have the applicant here? Come on, Frank, get the lead out.
Good evening, Frank de la Paz, 9361 Bird Road, in behalf of Sunny Comfort Homes LLC.
Thank you, sir.
The property in this application is a parcel that fronts East 40th Street on the north and East 39th Place on the south, and has a length of 149 feet. The property has low-density residential land use and is between 2 properties with medium-density residential land use, and within a block that includes 6 properties, from which 1 has commercial land use, fronting East 4th Avenue, 3 have medium-density residential land use, and 2 properties, including the subject property, have low-density residential land use. The property fronts high-density residential and commercial land uses on the north and low-density residential land use on the south. At this time, the applicant is before the city with a request to amend the land use map from low-density residential to high-density residential with the purpose of redeveloping the site with a new 5-unit multifamily building. Although there is no high-density residential land use on this block, it is already established across the street on East 40th Street, thus making the proposed land use consistent with the area. This 0.17-acre parcel could allow 4 units if developed with medium-density residential land use, and 5 is developed with high-density residential. In order to create a buffer from the low-density residential uses facing East 39th Place, The applicant is proposing to lay out the building towards the north in order to distance it 70 feet from the south property line, proposing to have the parking lot and required landscape buffer fronting E39 Place. This layout also brings the multifamily building closer to the properties with high-density residential land use and make it compatible with existing uses. The site is served by Pump Station 04058 that is in OK status. The scale of the development does not require traffic impact analysis, and the city's concurrency system indicates that the level of service for traffic is met. The Miami-Dade County Public School preliminary concurrency review is in process. The proposed land use is consistent with objectives 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6 of the comprehensive plan land use element and 1.1 and 2.2 of the housing element. In light of the above considerations, the requested land use should be approved.
Thank you, Mrs. George. Frank?
Good evening. I think that the planner has said it all. It will be a great improvement as from the cockfighting ring that was there before. So I'm looking forward the approval.
Okay.
We'll answer any questions that anybody will have.
Any comments or questions from the board? John, do you have a comment or question? No. Okay. That's right behind that AutoZone on 4th Avenue. Yeah. Okay. No more comments or questions from the board. Anyone in the audience? Okay. Anyone in the electronic audience? This is part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second that motion?
Motion, Mrs. Enriquez. Second, Mr. Iglesias. Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa? Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Well, once they see the
They
beautiful
should
building,
bulldoze
they
the
will-
whole neighborhood. Oh, yes, that's.
No hard feelings, right, Frank?
Sorry for the.
Hey.
LU 9.
Thank you, Frank.
LU 9. Small scale map amendment from low density residential to medium density residential. Property located at 10 West 53rd Terrace, Hialeah Zone 8 Agricultural District. Applicant Pedro Felipe Alvarez Pena.
Name and address. You getting the,
Yeah, I'm good.
getting the, there you go. Name and address, please.
Sam Loriga, Juan Arencibia, SLM Engineers, 18011 Biscayne Boulevard.
Thank you, sir. She'll read it into the record.
The property in this application is located at the southwest corner of Palm Avenue and West 53rd Terrace, and its rear property line is adjacent to the Little River Canal. The property has low-density residential land use and agricultural zoning classification, and is developed with a single-family home built in 1952. The adjacent land use to the north is commercial, to the east is medium-density residential, and to the west and south, across the canal, is low-density residential. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from low-density residential to medium-density residential in relation to a proposal to redevelop the site with a new 2-story, 4-unit multifamily building. The low scale of the proposed building makes it compatible with the low-density residential uses on the west, where 2.5 stories is the allowed height. Its location fronting Palm Avenue and across the street from a shopping plaza and multifamily development merits the increased density where the subject property will act as a buffer. The site is served by Pump Station 04064 that is in OK status. The scale of the development does not require traffic analysis, and the city's concurrency system indicates that the level of service for traffic is met. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools preliminary concurrency review is in process. The proposed land use is consistent with objectives 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6 of the comprehensive plan land use element and 1.1 and 2.2 of the housing element. In light of the above considerations, the requested land use should be approved.
Thank you, Mrs. George. Comments or questions?
We don't have a lot to add to what Mrs. George said. So basically, our client is trying to build a 4-unit apartment building where there is existing whole single family.
Thank you. Comments or questions? No comments from the board. Anyone in the audience have a comment or question on this item? On the electronic audience? Close to the part of the public hearing was the pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second, Mrs. Enriquez. Mr. Ulloa? Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
LU 10, small scale map amendment from medium density residential to major institutions. Properties located at 141 West 27th Street, 130, 140, 150, and 160 West 28th Street. Hialeah zoned R3, multiple family district. Applicant Javier L. Vasquez, Esquire, on behalf of 140 LLC.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Javi Vasquez, law offices at 1450 Brickell Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, sir.
The properties in this application are located on the west end of the block, surrounded by West 28th Street on the north, West 27th Street on the south, West 2nd Avenue on the west, and West 1st Avenue on the east, and includes 16 lots encompassing 2.4 acres. 11 of those 16 lots are developed with an assisted living facility and nursing facility operating on the site as Hialeah Convalescent Home since the mid-1960s. Those 11 lots have major institutions land use. The intense use of the property and scarce parking availability have been an issue for a long time. Acknowledging the problem, five adjacent lots have been acquired with the intention of consolidating the 16 lots and redeveloping the site with a state-of-the-art skilled nursing facility with 276 beds. The 5 lots that are subject of this application currently have medium-density residential land use. At this time, the applicant is requesting a land use change from medium-density residential to major institutions in order to consolidate a large site and have a land use that is consistent with the proposed new use of the added parcels. The site is served by Pump Station 04056 that is in okay status, and a sewer hydraulic analysis will be required prior to redevelopment. No traffic impact analysis is required since the proposed redevelopment will enlarge the facilities area but will reduce the intensity of its use. Given that the requested land use already exists and is immediately adjacent to the subject property, it is compatible with the existing land uses. The change is consistent with the city comprehensive plan policies 1.1.1, 1.4.3, and 1.4.9 of the future land use element. The recommendation is approved.
Thank you, Mrs. George. Javi?
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Once again, Javi Vasquez on behalf of the applicant. This is a pretty straightforward application. It's an assembly of 16 lots that out of the 16 lots, 11 of them today house a senior living facility that has 276 beds. 5 lots have another 100 beds for something else. These other 5 lots are being consolidated, whereas before we had 11 lots, now it's going to be 16. 5 of them have a medium density residential designation. So before we come forward with the conditional use permit for the overall project, which again will not increase the intensity, we're still going to end up with 276 nursing facility beds. This cleans up the land use part. So by the time that we come forward with the conditional use, we have a property that's fully designated for major institutions. So with that, we will respectfully request your approval as per Deborah's recommendation, and then we'll see you guys back when we come back to the second round for the conditional use.
Thank you, sir. Comments or questions?
Are you guys gonna be fixing up the building? Because I serviced that account.
The building, as I understand, is being completely demolished. It's going to be a
Will be a new
complete
building.
redo.
New
It's
building
going to be
with
a
parking
beautiful, brand new
garage.
building.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. Yeah, when we
Yeah.
come back for the CUP, we'll show you nice, pretty pictures like
Perfect.
Uvarza does.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question because I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very welcomed
Change.
redevelopment.
Yeah. Good deal. Any more comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Closes the part of the public hearing. It was the pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve?
Second that motion?
A motion,
Popular item.
Motion, Mr. Ulloa and Mr. Jimenez, second by Mr. Iglesias. Mr. G. Perez,
Absolutely.
Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa, Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Council date, once again.
September 13th.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Abby.
LU 11, small scale map amendment from residential office to commercial. Property located at 291 West 49th Street, Hialeah zones are all residential office. Applicant, Dr. Pablo Guola.
Good evening. I'm Jeffrey Rizzo with Hardaway Shabowski Architects, and I'm helping Dr. Guala with this land use amendment. The address is 291 West 49th Street.
Okay, we
Jack-
know you're there. Mr. Walla Dr. Walla will introduce himself, then I will read the report. And then if you have any comments, then we'll hear from you.
Just name and address.
Nice to meet you and thank you for having us today here. We are.
You just need to say your
I'm sorry,
name,
my name
and
is
your
Dr.
name
Walla,
and your
Pablo Walla.
address.
I'm an interventional cardiologist practicing in Hialeah for about 15 years. So
Just name and address for now.
that's it. 291 West 49th Street.
Thank you.
The property in this application is located at the northeastern intersection of West 49th Street and West 3rd Avenue. I'm sorry, I will repeat something that you've heard many times, but I need to make this part of the report, the whole explanation of 49th
Okay.
Street. The 49th Street corridor stretch that runs from Palm Avenue to West 4th Avenue has been historically designated with residential office land use, except for the block where Mylander Park and the JFK Library are located, and several properties that in the last few years were changed to commercial for redevelopment purposes. The northeast intersection of West 49th Street has commercial land use designation and has been recently redeveloped with a new commercial development. Only 2 properties in the subject corridor stretch remain with the original R1 zoning and remain developed as single-family homes. All the rest are developed as residential office on large lots or have plans in process for redevelopment. The properties on the north side of West 49th Street are part of the revised Yulela subdivision that reconfigured the original 50-feet lots in the original 1924 plat into tracts. Those tracts were later subdivided informally and resulted in parcels with larger frontages of 100 feet and 150 feet at the corners and depth of 127 feet. The majority of the properties on the north side of West 49th Street were developed in these large lots and often in double lots. As a result, the residential office buildings on those sites do not have the access and parking problems that this type of office has when developed in smaller lots. The properties on the south side of West 49th Street were part of the different subdivision and present access and parking problems similar to other residential office buildings along 49th Street developed on smaller lots. The residential office properties on the north side of West 49th Street between West 4th Avenue and Palm Avenue fulfill the purpose of the residential office designation of buffering the single-family residential homes north of West 49th Street from the heavy traffic on this stretch of West 49th Street. However, the occupational license limitation is still a concern. At this time, the applicant for this 0.48-acre site is before the city requesting a land use change from residential office to commercial with the intention of redeveloping the site with a new 2-story contemporary building for a cardiovascular surgery center. The reason for the land use change is to increase the number of occupational licenses. The submitted plans show a proposed development that is consistent with the intent of the residential office designation and therefore compatible, and that will effectively buffer the low-density residential properties north of West 49th Street. A detailed analysis of the proposal will be provided upon consideration of the property's rezoning. The property is served by Pump Station 061, which is currently in okay status. An increase in flow may require a hydraulic analysis and water sewer extensions for which the property owner will be responsible. For the characteristics of the use, there will be no impact on public schools. Since the proposed use will generate less than 3,000 trips, no traffic impact analysis is required. The recommendation is approved.
Thank you, Mrs. Storch. Doctor, would you like to just say a couple of words, or would you prefer that
Yeah,
that your
thank you.
Representative Jeffrey?
Yes, thank you. Again, my name is Dr. Pablo Wala. Thank you. We are planning to develop a surgical center. It's an ambulatory surgical center that is a state-of-the-art facility. Planning to bring a robotic technology to do heart angioplasties. Instead of going to the hospital, you go there, in 3 hours you go home. So it's going to be a major thing for Hialeah. No other center like this in Miami-Dade. Nobody uses this technology currently. And we are very happy in pursuing on our idea and doing this in an ambulatory fashion. We have a center, I have a center for about 7 years here in Red Road and 48th Street. We've been saving legs for about probably 3,500 people. Safe vitamin, people that don't need to go to the hospital. And it's a model that really works. We want to move that to the cardiac side, doing a cardiac facilitation. So,
Yeah, you're no stranger to this board. You've been here before. Some of the board members may not recognize you, but you got it going. Thank you, sir. Mr. Jeffrey, would you like to chime in, or?
No, I think the analysis and basis recommendation pretty much summed up the project. And this project is very similar to LU2 that you heard earlier this evening.
Mhm.
So I think we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it seems to have very similar architecture. It'll kind of like flow with the.
Yeah,
with the-
that's the redevelopment of 49th
Right.
Street. That
Yeah.
is the kind of product that is.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you both. Any comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? Well, you're the only one on the electronic audience, so there you are. Closest to the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second by Mrs. Enriquez and Mr. Jimenez. Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa.
yes.
Item has been approved.
Doctor, would you go as far as possibly even saying that your practice there could almost be like an outpatient, for an outpatient type of a service?
Correct. It's an outpatient.
An
So
outpatient,
It's not inpatient. Patients won't be able to stay overnight.
right? Because I remember many years ago, I had an angiogram and I had to spend a couple of days in the
I know,
hospital.
I know. And, we know that for a while, for years already, that doing that in ambulatory fashion facilitates and prevents a lot of problems. You don't need to be in the hospital 3 days for
Mm.
financial plastic that is half an hour work.
Yeah,
It's a simple thing.
but it was many years ago, so technology has improved.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something.
Yeah.
Put the cardiac cath and put a stent. That takes
Well,
a while.
yeah, you go in, and if you have blockage, then he can break it up and stuff, yeah.
Bioabsorbable stent, no, usually we use the drug-eluting stent. Metal with the drug that inhibits the proliferation of cells that would occlude the stent. So the stent will remain patent over many years. Yeah, so the bioabsorbable are not really good into the market here. No, of course. Any questions interesting, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Miscellaneous items not requiring advertising. Item number 12, old business.
Well, as you know, the next meeting is on September 7th because we moved all the meetings because of the budget meetings that the city is having. So see you all on September 7th.
Okay.
Item number 13, new business.
Any new business? No new business? Okay, well, that being said, it is adjourned.